Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to my top 10 horror movie list for 2022. First of all, this has been a crazy year for horror, and not just mainstream horror. Indie horror has really just exploded this year. We've got indie horror films like first-time directors breaking these like crazy numbers in the box office with like Smile and Terrifier 2, and it's been an insane year. I tried really hard to make a list pretty much all year of the films that I watched, went and saw. So this is going to be a top 10, and I'm going to start with, though, 5 honorable mentions of films that I watched for the first time this year, but actually came out in other years. And then I'll get into my top 10. Before I jump into this list, 2 things. One, I am just getting over strep, so I may do that a few times. Secondly, there are some heavy hitters that I did not see that were not considered for this list because, total transparency, I'm a single mom. I do a lot on my own with just my income, and I cannot afford the time or the money to just go to the theater all the time. It's not something that I have the capability of doing. So if something came out and it did not go to a streaming service that I have not seen it. I'm also making this on Christmas Day. So it's a few days before the end of the year. So some stuff is coming out and is in the process of coming out now on streaming that I'll eventually watch, but I'm guessing a majority of these wouldn't have made my top 10 list anyway. So that includes things like The Menu, Terrifier 2, and I feel like there's another one. There's another like really big one. I didn't get to see Pray the Devil, which is a PG-13 possession film. So guessing it wouldn't have made my top 10. Rated R possession film, maybe. Possession films, movie makers, if you're listening, should never be PG-13. I am a strong advocate for PG-13 movies, but not as possession films. No. Anyway, so so a couple of those things weren't in the mix because I didn't get a chance to go see them. So anyway, I'm going to start with my 5 honorable mentions of movies that I saw as first watches this year, but did not actually come out this year. And the first one is Lavender from 2017. Lavender is a psychological horror film that kind of skews the line between supernatural and not. It's got quite a cast, but to keep this video short, I'm just going to focus on the quick notes of things that I liked and didn't like. It was a really, really great story about grief and family and, family secret kind of stuff. But the acting and the atmosphere were phenomenal. And I really loved the way that the story unfolded. I don't know how I missed this movie, but it was really, really good. And that was Lavender, 2017. Another one's called The Wretched. This came out in 2019. The Wretched is a lore story about, more. It's another thing. It's family stuff, family drama story with some lore and kind of older, like earth god kind of vibes to it. It's actually a very, very unsettling film. I really liked it a lot, though. So The Wretched was one that I had watched under the recommendation of JR from Horror Fiend TV. So I watched that one this year for the first time. That one was really good as well. So another one was Z Wants to Play, which came out in 2019 as well. This is certainly a film that is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it is a story about an imaginary friend come to life that is a monster. And the shortness of this is that it's a very great, I don't want to say like a commentary, but it's a really interesting take on things that we experience and feel as children, and then the things that happen to us that make us grow up. And it was a really, really well done film. The kid actor was phenomenal. The creature design was really unsettling and creepy. The story was really good. I really liked Z Wants to Play. So if you're into stuff like that, that's a highly recommend for me. The Bridge Curse is another one that was recommended to me by JR. He's like a big international horror fan. Like he knows all the best stuff to watch. And so this came out in 2020. This is a Chinese Mandarin film about what happens when you go on this bridge and you do these certain acts and then the things that follow after. There's some scenes in this though that reminded me it's a very unsettling film. It's very well shot. Acting and stuff is on point. Atmosphere is beautiful. But there's some scenes in this that remind me a lot of Silent Hill. And so it was like a, huge Silent Hill fan. So it was like a massive win for me. And then my last one is one that blew me out of the water. If I had done a top 10 list in 2018, if Voices had existed then, this would have been my number one for the year. And that's Savage Land, which again came out in 2018. Savage Land is a found footage film that Tom and I talked about on an episode of Found Footage Fridays. I'll try to remember to link that above. I sincerely recommend that film. It is beautifully done. It's done like a mockumentary style, but there's no video clips of like the scary stuff. The scary stuff relies on storytelling, the character building, and these pictures that this main character was able to capture the night of this horrible event. One of the smartest horror films I think I have ever seen, with social commentary that is relevant very much still today. Cannot recommend Savage Land like enough. I watched it and I was so unsettled. It took me a while to calm down enough to go to bed. Like it was so good. So Savage Land was my last honorable mention for first time watches for this year, but actually came out for another year. So without further ado, let's jump into my top 10. As you guys know, I do not tend to go, my likes for horror movies tend to be very different than the masses. So I do not expect this list to make sense to most people. People who know me will know that quite a few of these were going to be on my list. But some of these are going to kind of come out of left field. But they were movies that just to me stood out above the rest. So I'm going to go from 10 to 1. I decided to stop and get a cough drop because I could feel the coffee rising in my throat. Yay. Yeah, so my number 10 is the Del Toro series on Netflix, Cabinet of Curiosities. If you're familiar with my list from last year, it had 2 shows on it, I believe. 2 or 3. 2, I think. Shows 100% get counted with me as far as top horror for the year. Those are just really long movies, right? So I'm a huge fan of his. I love everything that he touches. I finally got to see Nightmare Alley recently. I loved the new Pinocchio that he just put out. Like, I'm a really big fan, and giving these directors and these writers opportunities to put these stories together for this anthology. I mean, there's a couple that were a little weaker for me, but I think all in all, there was a lot of creativity. There was a lot of lore. There was a lot of fantastic storytelling and practical effects, acting and atmosphere. And the final one of the series is really the one that really boosted this up to be considered for a top 10 list. And that's The Murmuring. And like, I'm telling you, like that one had me, that's what I would consider like grief horror, which is hit or miss for me, but that one had me in tears. It was so good. And I just thought it was really, really unique. Some of the stories were a little fun. Some of them were really dark. It has a lot of Lovecraftian type things. I was a big fan of the video game Layers of Fear, which is based off of a Lovecraft story called Pigman's Model. And there is an episode in Cabinet of Curiosities called Pigman's Model, which has Ben Barnes, who is amazing. And that one was a really strong entry in that anthology as well. So I'm really, really pumped about the possibility of them continuing to do it. And that includes things like the attention to detail in the introduction. So in the beginning of every episode, Del Toro comes out and this big thing opens up into these like different spaces and stuff. And he pulls out something related to the story that we're about to see, like an item or something related, and then a carving of the director. And it was just such a respectful, beautiful way to acknowledge the creators of the films that were put together for this anthology. I just really loved it. I thought it was really great. So that's my number 10. My number 9, I'm really mad more people are not talking about, is Don't Worry, Darling. A couple people argued with me that this wasn't horror, but I'm inclined to disagree. I think that there's a lot of elements, without giving too much away, that we would absolutely consider horror in any other aspect. So this is absolutely a horror film. Florence, I mean, I'm like obsessed with her now. She did such a great job in that movie. I didn't really like Midsummer, as most of you know by this point. I'm not a big A24 film, but like fan, right? But she's fantastic, and she did such a great job in this. The cast was really good in general, but her and Harry Styles, I almost said Henry. Harry Styles did a great job too. So, Don't Worry, Darling was a fantastic like social commentary on women and their roles and their places in this world being controlled by it's a lot. It's really, really, really good. Beautifully done, fantastic story. I was engaged from the very, very beginning. A lot of mystery, so just really cool stuff put together. Like I just really, really liked it a lot. And to me, the as much hype as I saw about the movie Barbarian, I thought that people should have been talking about this one instead, because spoiler alert, Barbarian ain't on this list. I don't know what everyone's obsession is with that movie, but it was not a great film. It did not check any boxes for me. Other than the acting was good. That's all I got. But I felt like the amount of hype that people gave Barbarian, that should have been given to Don't Worry, Darling. Don't Worry, Darling was a fantastic film. That's my number 9. My number 8 is the Amazon horror series From. I didn't really know very much about this until I don't know, like I guess it just came up one day. I don't remember exactly how I stumbled upon it, but it came out this year and it has been renewed. Thank God for a second season, probably because it's not on Netflix. Thankfully, it's on a really good, streaming service that doesn't cancel things that we fall in love with. I say Amazon. I think I watched it through Amazon, but it actually is an Epix original, just like Chapelwaite. I think that's right. Anyway, so From, if you're not familiar, is a story. It's about this little town in the middle of nowhere, and once you get into the town, like you can't leave. And there's these things that come out at night, and it's just this very obscure mystery monster, human, like I don't know. Checked a ton of boxes for me. It's got gore, story, atmosphere, like mystery. Like I left at the season finale, I had more questions than I had answers. And this was done so well that I was not mad about that at all. And again, because it wasn't on Netflix, I wasn't worried about it getting canceled. So it does have a second season. Very curious to see. But it's really cool. If you like monster movies, if you like things that kind of throw you for a loop, you don't always really understand what's going on. You don't get a lot of answers. With compelling character arcs. It was a fantastic show. I really loved it. So that's my number 8. My number 7. After I say this one, and I'm going to make a comparison, it's going to make people mad. And that's okay. It hasn't stopped me before. So my number 7 is Smile. So I had to wait for Smile to come out on streaming. I was nervous I wasn't going to be able to get it in before the end of the year, and I'm glad I was able to because I didn't get a chance to go see it in theaters. Smile is a fantastic film. It's unsettling, it's brooding, it's gritty, it's different. It has these moments of just regular horror, and then there's this underlying message that's carried throughout the entire film from start to finish. And the message is a really great one. And I think, one of the reasons that I didn't like It Follows is because, like, I just kind of like, I didn't think like it was scary. I didn't think it was like effective. I didn't care about what it had to say. I didn't feel that way with Smile. I was super invested in the characters, pretty much from the very beginning. It's unsettling, like I said, very unique. It's so essentially, and this isn't giving too much away, if you haven't seen Smile, but it's a statement piece on trauma. And there's these underlying things that happen throughout the film where you're reminded over and over and over again, the trauma doesn't go away. You know, we live in a world where people are like, "Oh, you're so easily triggered," and no one wants to acknowledge trauma or respect its place in a person's life, because this movie goes into depths about trauma that I haven't seen a message like this in a really long time in a horror movie. And I think one of the best things that it talks about and covers throughout the story is this concept that even when you heal from trauma, it's never gone. It never stops affecting you. It's never gone forever and won't ever bother you ever again. And it talks about how it not only affects you as the individual who experienced the trauma, but all the people around you and that are a part of your life that love you, that care about you, that you work with, that you're friends with. And it just dug so deep without info dumping and having these like, I don't know. I just feel like Smile is what It Follows was trying to be. And my follow number just goes down. But it's true. That's how I feel. Smile is a fantastic film. I think I wish it was something I could even argue where I feel like, oh, maybe, you know, it's not for everybody. But honestly, I don't know why someone wouldn't like this film. It's not something we've seen before. I also love this concept that there's always more to a smile. You know, how many times have we seen celebrities or people we know, loved ones, distant relatives, friends who we thought were perfectly okay? They smiled, they laughed, they cut up, and then they were gone because they weren't okay. Smiling is sinister and it's not always what it seems. And I think that that and the trauma element, they just made this film so fucking effective. So Smile, without rambling too much, is my number 7. My number 6 for this year is Incantation, which is another found footage film. This was one of the first ones. I think this is like maybe our second episode. Tom and I covered this on Found Footage Fridays as well. We both really enjoyed this. Incantation does break a couple of rules in the found footage world as far as camera angles and camera shots. But I mean, other than that, it was a really solid found footage movie. It's scary. It's like heartbreaking. It's emotional. It's raw. It's got these scenes that just like a lot of like those like build up moments of anticipation, you know, like something is about to happen and you're like trying to prepare yourself. And it's not just cheap jump scares. It's a lot of build up and unsettling moments that just, you know, they kind of just took me by surprise. I expected to like it. I'm not going to lie. But I'm a sucker for anything that has a deep storyline with a lot of lore. If there's lore, especially if it relates back to religion, I am like in. Those are like my 2 weaknesses: lore, religion. Love it in horror. And this covers that. I mean, it's got both of those things. And I mean, yeah, besides that, it's a very grainy film. I liked it a lot. I thought it was just really well done. So Incantation is my number 6. I'm not entirely sure if this one, my number 5, is going to surprise people that this isn't somewhere else on my list, but we'll see how it goes. My number 5 is Scream. Now, much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween Ends, this film was one that people either really bitched about or really loved. And as a like diehard Scream fan, I'm a massive Scream fan. You know, this was a fantastic movie. I went and saw this in theaters opening night. And I rewatched all of the other ones to get kind of caught up because obviously it's been a while since we've had a Scream movie. And I went into this, you know, not really sure what to expect. How are they going to do anything different? How are they going to top off, you know, what they've already done in the franchise, you know, especially so much later after the fact. And yeah, I loved this film. I thought it was a little more gruesome, which I appreciated. I really liked that it was a little more rough as far as some of the kills and the gore and stuff. But I think what I really loved about it was it felt like, and Matthew Lillard, I think, tweeted this or posted it somewhere, that it was a love letter to the fans of Scream. And I honestly felt that way. Like, I felt like there was a lot of love and care that went into making this film. And there's enough that's unique with still keeping, you know, ties to the original films, the original concept, all these things. But it was just, I don't know. I really loved it. There's a couple of things in it that one of the main reasons it's not higher. I really did not like Sam's character. I really did not like the whole daughter of a serial killer shit. I'm sorry if that's like a spoiler, but Scream came out like a million years ago. So, Paul, sorry. If you haven't already seen it, there's no way I'm the one that ruined it for you. Anyway, that really got under my skin. I thought Tara was the stronger of the two, and I would have been like, I'm like the one of the things I'm not looking forward to about 6 is that Sam is in it. Like she was like my least favorite character. I didn't care for any of that part of it at all, but otherwise, I love taking us back to similar set pieces and locations, and we've got our legendary characters. Like I really loved it. I really loved it a lot, and it was an emotional ride that I wasn't expecting. Like I wasn't expecting to go into a slasher that's in its 5th movie and be so emotionally like distraught by the end of it. But it was really, really good. I loved Scream. So that's my number 5. My number 4 is one that a lot of people are not talking about, and they should be. This movie came out, I don't know, March of this year, I think. It was originally, when it did the festival circuit, it was originally called something else, but the movie is called, now it's called The Cursed. It used to be called 8 for Silver, which is the name of a nursery rhyme, I believe. The Cursed is a werewolf film. Very reminiscent of, Wolfman, as far as gypsy lore and, that kind of stuff. But what makes this movie stand out? First of all, I'm a massive werewolf fan. I love werewolves. But the thing that made this film stand apart was the creature design. And I'm not going to give it away because you need to experience it. But this had such a unique take on the concept of the changing of the werewolf and the concept of the curse and the way that it affects the human body when it's active versus not active. I was blown away. Like I was like watching it, and I left the theater just like, oh my God, that was a phenomenal movie. And then like nobody was talking about it. I don't know why. I do know that this one is streaming on, I think it's Hulu, but it is fantastic. If you like creature feature type werewolf movies and you're looking for something different, The Cursed is the way to go. It was a fantastic film, and yeah, it's my number 4 for the year. Let's see. We're down to my top 3. I'm doing okay on time. Look at me. It's not 2 hours. Good job. My number 3, I said when I watched this, and I tweeted about watching it, I said that this movie was going to make my top 10. I knew it was going to. I knew there was no way I was not going to have this on my top 10 list. So my number 3 is Mad God. So Mad God is a stop motion. It's kind of a mix of techniques, but clay stop motion. Some of it's like live action looking stuff. But it's done by Phil Tippett, who's done work on movies like like I think like RoboCop and stuff like that. But this is a passion project. This film was in the works for like 30 years before it was finally brought to fruition. And it's a very odd watch. It's very strange. It's very dark and creepy and weird. And at times it makes absolutely no sense. And you really genuinely, in my humble opinion, do have to pay attention to pick up pieces of the storyline to be able to weave them together, because I've seen a lot of people say that this movie has no story, and that cannot be further from the truth. This movie is a lot about control and power and life and death. And there's a lot of reoccurring moments and themes and things that come up. It's beautifully shot. It's incredibly deliciously weird. And honestly, like there's not much else to really say about it except you should go watch it. It's on Shudder. There was a holiday one that came out like a month or so ago, I think. I didn't get an opportunity to see that one. I plan to eventually watch it, but I definitely represent. I mentioned I've been sick and it's Christmas Day, right? I'm tired, but I am festive. I got my Krampus sweatshirt on. So I did try. I'm just so tired. Anyway, so been a long day. Yeah, highly recommend Mad God. Super, super, super good film. I loved it. I thought it was creative and weird and just so, and I don't always like weird. Sometimes weird movies are like too weird for me and I'm like, oh, this is garbage or I didn't like it, but I did not feel that way. I have a lot of respect for Phil. This was a great film. I really enjoyed it. So that's my number 3. Last 2. All right. So my number 2 film, this was another one that I knew was absolutely going to be on my top 10 list. Black Phone. Shocker, right? First of all, I love this 50-50 storyline that Black Phone has going on. I'm going to avoid saying too much. Ethan Hawke is a villain. Sign me up. He's fantastic. I like him in general. I love him as an actor. I mean, the first thing I think I ever saw him in was like Training Day. It was like a million years ago. But he's fantastic. I loved him in Daybreakers, the vampire movie with Willem Dafoe. So good. Anyway, so he's fantastic in this. The mask design is really fucking cool, like really cool. The kids did a great job. The supernatural versus the like normal parts of the story were very well balanced. They flowed beautifully. The cinematography was super on point. It really did a great job of making you uncomfortable. And I didn't think about this. I think I did a review on this one with Three Corners of Horror on Horror Fiend TV. And one of the things that I think Rick pointed out was that there's this like this video game feel to it. And I love stuff like that. And I hadn't thought about it, but I bet that's part of why I also really loved it. I really liked it. It felt there's some stuff in it that I could have done without. There's some things that kind of just were like, man, but for the most part, this felt like a really unique film and it was really unsettling. And Ethan Hawke, I mean, he nailed it. He did such a fantastic job. The little girl that plays Gwen, the sister, I think her name is Gwen. Oh my God, that girl's got a long career ahead of her. She's fantastic too. It was just a really good film. Really unsettling, very dark, emotionally just like, oh my God. Because I'm a mother. So like thinking about if that had been my son in this situation, like I don't know, it just hits different is my point in saying that. But yeah, so Black Phone is my number 2. Which only leaves, of course, my number 1 for the year. So my number 1 best horror of 2022 is the Chinese movie The Sadness. Now, yes, technically The Sadness came out in 2021. However, we didn't have it in the States until this year. So we weren't able to watch it until 2022. So can it? I'm not really sure where to begin with this one. This movie, what it lacks in story, it makes up for in concept, right? So there's not a lot of to me, there's not a lot of character arc. There's not a lot of like storytelling as far as a path we're taking with people or a journey, right? It's not really like that. Even though we see the same people, you know, consistently throughout for the most part. However, conceptually, I really, really liked it a lot. So this almost comes across like a zombie film, but it's not zombies. So if you're not familiar, there is a comic series called graphic novel series called Crossed, which has to do with basically they're people turning into these like versions of themselves that they would be, you know, like kind of given into like I don't want to say primal because I don't think some of these horrible things are primal, but basically just like it's like a virus that affects you and brings out all of these horrible things about you that you would never do before because you weren't allowed to. And so this is a very gory movie. This is a very gory movie. A lot of blood, a lot of violence, a lot of death, a lot of like really effed up scenes. But it was really good. Like it was so effective. The gore and all of that was like so well done. The characters that we do get, even though there's not those big character arcs, they were really well done too. I really liked them. Um, it just was one of those films that, like, I couldn't stop thinking about it long after I watched it. I actually reviewed this with Three Corners of Horror as well. Dang, I was on there for all the good movies. Except Smile. So I think that The Sadness is one of those movies where it is really hard to put into words why it was good. But it just was one of those movies that lingered and stuck with me. And I just really thought, I don't know, like it just, I mean, when we watch horror, we want to be unsettled. We want to be bothered. We want to be uncomfortable. We want to be scared. And this fucking did that. Like I was so uncomfortable after I watched it. So yeah, so The Sadness is my number one for the year. Also, I realized, so it was really hard for me. I was trying to do my 5 honorable mentions for movies that were first watches for this year, but they came out at another time. The other one I forgot to put on there that really probably would have beat out one of the other ones is Chapelwaite. So I don't know where y'all know I love Adrian Brody. I'm a huge Adrian Brody fan. Love him. But I didn't get to see it when it first came out. I didn't watch it for the first time until this year, and it's based off of Salem's Lot. It is so good. It's a period story. It is a series, but I did want to mention that before I end this video because it's fantastic. Anyway, so now that I've made everybody mad with my list, that's my top 10 best horror of 2022. It was a crazy year, and it was hard. I saw things like The Hatching, which I loved. The Innocents was amazing. I loved it. There What Josiah Saw, which is an indie film on Shudder, was fantastic. So Vam on Shudder was fantastic. There's a lot of really great stuff that came out this year, and there's a lot of cool stuff I didn't get to see yet. But these were just the ones that hit, the mark for me, that check boxes for me. So I wanted to wrap my list up and get it ready to present to the world. So that's my top 10 for 2022. What are some movies I missed that you loved? Have you seen The Curse? Like, is that something anybody who's watching has seen? Because I know we need to be talking about that movie more. It was so good. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. I'm very tired. Again, it's Christmas Day. I have a little one, so it's been a long day. But I wanted to get this while I was feeling passionate about my movie choices and while I had them narrowed down before I changed them for the 50th time. Anyway, so Happy New Year, you guys. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and I will see you in the next one.